Hello there, and welcome to the reason why you cannot give me free will when it comes to creating an open-ended project. Do you like bugs? No? You think they're gross? Well, too bad. I can't stop rotating these little guys in my brain like a microwave. Now, to start off with, insects and bugs as a whole general topic are usually looked down upon. You think of bugs and you probably think of a pest or a creepy crawly. But that is just the surface layer of an insect because this little guy can be a lot of things. Okay, so before we can get into the symbolism behind some of the more specific creatures, we should start off with the general terms. What makes an insect? And how is that different from a bug? Because just writing this script has forced me to learn that there is in fact an actual difference. Insects, or class Insecta, are categorized by having three main body parts: a head, a thorax, and an abdomen. They also have 6 legs, a pair of antennae, and they can have 0 or 2 pairs of wings. Bugs, on the other hand, or true bugs, are a part of the order Hemiptera, which means they must have piercing mouth parts, and the suborder Heteroptera, which is categorized by the possession of typical forewings and scent glands. These are our true bugs. Now, these true bugs usually aren't mentioned within literature that much, but they aren't wholly uncommon. Ever heard of don't let the bed bugs bite? Well, wouldn't you know it, that buddy boy is a true bug. Do you know how cicadas chirp during the summer and thus can be used to show the passage of time or even symbolize the season itself? That's a true bug, baby! And while stink bugs use their stinkiness as a defense mechanism, usually to show stench, people drift towards using flies more so. Flies buzzing around rot or out of pockets can be used to convey a sense of filth or a more run-down vibe. Through trying to find the order of flies, or Dipteras, I was already trying to think of common symbolism within them. Unfortunately, their biggest contenders are flies, known for grossness, and mosquitoes, known for being evil. I remembered fireflies and got excited, only to learn that these guys lie. They aren't actually flies. They're classified as Coleoptera, or beetles. They're beetles. Speaking of beetles, there are several different types, which means several different things, like scarabs being a symbol of life and rebirth, ladybugs being love and good luck when they land on you, and stag beetles being a symbol of power and strength. This power is in a similar vein to a mantis's, mantisae, who can be seen as a symbol of courage or perseverance. Straying away from the mantodias, mantises just have their own order because apparently there's just that frickin' many. Orthopteras are defined by having generally cylindrical bodies with elongated hind legs and musculature adapted for jumping. This includes grasshoppers, crickets, katydids, locusts, and the like. While all of them share a similar appearance, when used in stories or poems, they can be perceived quite differently. For instance, crickets can be used to show a change in time due to their chirping at dawn and dusk. This loud methods can fully juxtapose their other widely known meaning of silence, as can be used after a bad joke or an awkward conversation, a comical cricket chirp. Grasshoppers, on the other hand, while similar, are related to prosperity and abundance in some cultures. It's also used as a nickname to call someone younger or less knowledgeable than you about a subject. This originates from the TV series Kung Fu and was adapted into several different medias from there. There's also Aesop's fable of the ant and the grasshopper, in which the ant prepares for winter and the grasshopper dances during the summer. And thus, when winter hits, the grasshopper is fully unprepared and dies, while the ant is happy and warm. This tale makes my transition into ants much easier as the hardworking colonies they are. They are a part of the order Hymenoptera, which includes ants, bees, wasps, and other hive mind-like creatures. Now, obviously, all of these insects operate off of a hive or a colony, and thus are interlinked with the symbolism of teamwork and unity, etc., etc. What I think is interesting is the dynamic between bees and wasps. At their core level, they both operate in the same way. They both function and fight for the benefit of the swarm. Wasps just go about it in a much more predatory way in comparison to bees. This also brings up the idea of a hive mind, or the power of control in general. I think that's just a fascinating and underutilized comparison to have, especially when dealing with just insects. I think the last main order I'd like to talk about before we get into the miscellaneous section is Lepidoptera, also known as our butterflies, moths, and, by extension, caterpillars. Now, one of the most prominent meanings we derive from this order as a whole is the process of metamorphosis, the inherent and drastic change. From caterpillar to chrysalis to butterfly, it's the most obvious metaphor for change and growing up out there. This can also be pushed to rebirth in a sense, and either way, it's a done-to-death symbol that can be seen anywhere. There's also the contrast between butterflies and moths, and the love the butterfly gets against the hate that the moth gets. Although nowadays, I feel people appreciate a good, cute moth. But this typically leads to butterflies having things like innocence, beauty, and grace tied to it, whereas moths are more typically related to dust and even abandonment to a degree. The phrase, "like a moth to the flame," is also important to mention here, as it comes up quite commonly in both poetry and literature as a whole. Miscellaneous section time. These are my one-off bugs that I feel the need to mention, but their order is so small that I didn't want to make a full paragraph about them. First off, dragonflies, the pretty much sole member of the Odonata order. Because of course, they're not flies, why would they be? I thought these guys were kind of boring at first glance, common symbols being change and new beginnings, but then I found a couple of cool myths attached to them. Native Americans believed that the dragonfly was in fact a dragon that was tricked by a coyote to shapeshift into its present form of an insect. Once the dragon took the form of a dragonfly, it couldn't shift back. Then and now, the dragonfly represents swiftness, illusion, and change, which is a quote from Corinne Burgess' article. The second thing I found was something about dragonflies symbolizing angels, and how it said they were given 4 pairs of wings so that angels could ride on their backs. They're apparently considered messengers from the spiritual, non-physical realms. And to follow that up, worms! Now, they're obviously very correlated to their home, the dirt, and thus can be associated with filth. But due to their consumption of nutrients from living things that died in the soil, they can also be seen with death very frequently as well. Lastly, we will not be going over spiders, as they are arachnids, not insects. Thank you. It's also because someone else is doing spiders and because it flaws my own logic of worms being included, but whatever, worms are cool, okay? So yeah, that's my bug rant. Hopefully you learned something. If you didn't, did you know that Hymenopterus, bees, ants, wasps, sawflies, dipteras, flies, odonatas, dragonflies, damselflies, orthopteras, grasshoppers, locusts, and mantodias, mantises, all have ocelli eyes. Ocelli eyes are 3 little eyes on their forehead, which they use to take in light, and they're simple eyes comparatively to the big old compound eyes they have. So yeah, fun fact.